Hi everybody, it's Annalisa here with ABC for Dance, and this is Lesson 6, Positions of the Knee. This is going to be all video because I don't have another person to show you different options with, so it's a little easier to do it this way. Just as a recap, with Deb, you learned the bones of the knee, so you know it's your femur up on top, and then below you have your tibia and your fibula, and then in front is your kneecap. In addition to the bones that make up our knee, we also have a series of ligaments, and these ligaments are vital to the stabilization of your knee. The ligaments are connective tissue. They have the ability to stretch, but they are not elastic because they do not have the ability to retract to their starting position. So the reason ligaments do need to stretch is as we grow, the ligament needs to be able to stretch with the growing bone to avoid too much pressure on the bone and to allow the joint movement. However, there are certain things that we do sometimes when we're standing which will put extra stress on the ligament. And one of those things is standing in a hyperextended knee or weight bearing in a hyperextended leg. And what that does is it puts constant stretch on the ligament and creates a weakness there, which means your knee is going to be less stable in the long run. So as we look at the positions of our knee, one of the reasons a neutral position is really important is to keep the stress on the ligaments as low as possible. Another reason is because it's the middle joint between our foot and our hip, so it has to stabilize and work along with other joints. So knee position and knee tracking is really important in general life, not as well as dancing. The first position we're going to look at is neutral, and if you look at this green line going down through the leg, you're going to see it's going down pretty much through the center of the knee area. And this is called a plumb line, so it would be hanging from the ceiling and go down. But this one shows a pretty centered line through the knee area, meaning the knee joint is neutral, and this is ideally what we're looking for, especially when we're standing or weight bearing on our leg. The next position is flexed, so that means our knee is a little bit bent. And you might find sometimes when you're taking class, especially if your leg's behind you in arabesque, your teacher saying lengthen your leg or stretch behind your knee more. It's probably because the knee looks a little bit bent and is a little bit flexed versus being in a really straight line. So if you look at the gray line going down the body here, what you're going to notice is that gray line is to the back of the body. So most of the knee joint area is in front of that gray line. It is not centered. So this means that our knee is a little bit flexed. It is not as straight as it could be, but it could also be more bent. So this is like going almost into the start of a plie. When we plie, we flex our knee. So if we didn't straighten it all the way, or sometimes if the muscles behind our leg are really tight, we will wind up having this flexed knee. Some people have it just from their bone alignment. So it's not something that can always be corrected, but we can always think about lengthening that leg more. This last position we're looking at is hyperextension. And if you notice here, that plumb line is dropping down and the majority of the knee is now behind the plumb line. So the knee is literally bending backwards. If you think of how those bones are stacked, it's like you're bending it in the opposite direction it should be in. It might be easier to think of a door that has, let's think of a cabinet door. We can open the door in the direction the hinge wants us to open to, and it's no problem. But if we try to go beyond that hinge and continue to open the door kind of around the frame, that hinge will snap. And that's what we're doing a little bit in hyperextension. We're opening the joint up past its neutral line and creating a lot more pressure there. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a second. So I'm going to use these two hair elastics to help explain the hyperextension challenges a little bit more easily. The white elastic is going to be my hyperextended elastic, and the darker elastic is going to be my neutral elastic, if you will. If I stand in a hyperextended position for a long period of time, or I am constantly standing there because I don't realize I'm hyperextending, I'm going to keep stretching out those ligaments, just like this white elastic is stretched out. So many of you may have long hair and may have had this happen to you. You kind of do a quick messy bun. You take your regular hair elastic, you wrap it around your ponytail, then you turn your ponytail into a bun, then you wrap the elastic around some more, and then you take it out later. And after you take it out, it's gotten a little bit bigger and a little less resilient than it used to be. So just for comparison, the white elastic and the darker elastic started as the exact same size. Just one of them is my messy bun elastic and the other one is my regular elastic. So you see how easy it is for me to stretch that messy bun elastic. There's not a lot of resistance there at all. And it's a little bit bigger resting length than my dark elastic. So this is my neutral elastic. It's harder for me to stretch and it snaps back to its starting position a little bit better. That's kind of what we want to happen. So while I said before, our ligaments don't regress back to their starting position if they've had a lot of stretch or strain to them. If it's only once or twice, we haven't done the permanent damage. So we have that play back to it. The more we sit into that hyperextension, the more constant stretch we have, and the more those ligaments are going to be a little too stretched out to be able to hold us stable in the long run. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at our knee and see, is our knee tending to be more neutral, more flexed, or more hyperextended? The first thing you need to do if you're wearing long pants is to roll them up so you can actually see your knee. And if you don't have a mirror available, you can maybe set up your phone or your computer or something to take a picture of your knee so you get a better idea of what's happening and what it looks like. This is a flexed knee. As I go into straightening my knee, I find my straight, and then if I continue to push back, I'm going to go into my hyperextension. Not everybody goes through all of those three positions. So some people stop before they even get to neutral. Other people can get to neutral but can't go to hyperextension. And then some people have the ability to continue pushing back into hyperextension. And remember, that's not necessarily a goal. All right, so when you're standing, if you just walk in place, la 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 la, and then you put your feet down, put your weight down on it, where does your tendency to weight bear be? Does it tend to be locked back into your hyperextension? Does it tend to be more neutral? Or does it tend to be a little bit flexed? That's what you're trying to find out, is where is your default position? Now to work on our leg, what we want to do is we want to work on trying to keep our leg lifted. So you may have heard teachers ask you to pull up your thigh or pull up your knee. I really don't like the pull up your kneecap idea because I find people grip really hard and you can actually do some damage that way. So there's a difference between pulling up or activating my leg and gripping my kneecap. If you know that you hyperextend and that's your default position, take a towel and just fold it up and put it under your knee so that there's a limit to how much hyperextension you can go into. All right, so you're just giving yourself something a little bit soft and protective there, a little bit higher, so you're not as apt to push down into hyperextension in this exercise. You're going to start with your legs straight in front of you. You want to flex your foot and lengthen your leg. As soon as you start to flex your foot and push your leg away, you're going to either see or feel the muscles around your thigh contract and hold you. So as you keep stretching and flexing your foot, you want to just think long through the front of your leg. Here's the tricky part. Once you're there, you want to maintain this length through the back of the leg and keeping that nice pulled up feeling in the front of the leg, and start to isolate from your ankle and point your foot. So you're going to flex your foot, feel the length along the back of your leg. As we flex, it's lengthening that whole back chain of our leg. Now maintain that length, which means you do have to actively hold your quad engaged and point your foot. flex, and point, and flex, and point, and really watch that everything is nice and neutral. Last time, flex and point, and then let your leg relax and feel the difference. You want to do that 5 to 10 times on each side, just so you get the idea of trying to isolate a contracted kind of toned feeling where you're holding it but not gripping, and then you're able to still move your foot and ankle. And yes, other muscles along the way are going to be changing as you're doing it. It's not that I can truly isolate my ankle and keep everything else engaged. It's that I want to try to get that length through the leg and that feeling of tension forward and backwards and up and down, and kind of a circle of energy going as I use my ankle.